Hello, fellow traders. Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Wednesday, July the 20th. The year's 2022. Let's talk trading. Setting your limits, part 3 with Walmal. As always, these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine and different from Walmal. Walmal is usually the fastest 15 minutes of trading got us yesterday. So what else? We were talking about setting your limits, knowing your limits. I think you had mentioned something you wanted to talk about knowing your limits.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly right. You got to know your limits, you know. And I started going and talking a little bit about the psychology of it a little bit. And the reality is, just because your bank account or your trading account says you can do something doesn't mean that you can do it. You know,
Or should do it.
say that again, sir.
I said or should do it.
Or should do it, or shouldn't do it. You know, and just let's say you had this imaginary account of $1 million, which means that you could be easily trading 25, 30, 40 lots. But when you go and see that it moves 1 point, and it moves 1 point, and you're down $500, it's like, whoa. Or it moves 10 pips, and you're sitting there and you're down thousands, and so it's sort of like, well, that may not just be where your headspace is and your ability to do that. I'm not saying that you can't get there. I'm just saying that when you're starting out, perhaps that's just not where you're at yet. And so know your limits, know where you're at, know what you're comfortable and able to do. The reality is, I don't like, as a lot of I like to use a lot of baseball illustrations, and it's sort of like, Paul O'Neill, he was a great first baseman for the New York Yankees back in the 90s, and he got on base all of the time. He had a great, on base average. But the man I could probably hit more home runs than him. I'm kidding. But the reality is, his game was the long ball, and he had no business trying to go and do that. And, and when he did, he got himself into trouble and got himself into these batting slumps. And the funny thing about him was that what would happen is he'd be hitting really well, and then he'd get lucky a bunch of times in a row. He hit a bunch of home runs. And next thing you know, he thinks he's a home run hitter, and it would invariably all the time put him into a batting slump, and he'd have to, go and start from scratch, and just literally level everything he was doing, get back to basics. And I say that and use it as an illustration because sometimes we as traders, we get lucky, we don't trade a particular way, but we get a couple of gifts from the from the forex market, and I can do this, I can do it all the time. Look at this is great. And then you start trying to trade that way, and it's not your game. And because it's not your game, you're in trouble. So you got to put limits on what you're doing. And sure, if it gives you a gift, take the gift, no question about it. But at the same time, don't be out there looking for the gift. It's I'll go and tell on me, and you can go and and verify this because we were on the phone when it happened. You said, "Are you at that trade yet?" And I said, "No." Why aren't you at the trade yet? Because I'm looking for 60. I'm looking for it to get down to 60. And it never got there, but I finally did get out. But the thing is, that's not my game. I'm not looking for 10, 15, 20 bit moves. I'm looking for, 1, 2, 3, 5 bit moves. And I was getting it. And I think my response to you, if I recall correctly, was when you said, "Why aren't you out?" I said, "Because I'm greedy."
Yeah, that's what you said.
And you can't do that. If it goes in your direction, I'm not saying get out because it's moving in your direction. No, that's silly. But at the same time, if it moved in your direction and moved, more than what you typically would expect it to move in your methodology of playing, then, be happy with what you got. Take what you got, take it off the table, put the money in the bank, and look for your next opportunity. At least that's how I trade.
Yeah, and speaking of opportunity, the pounds is dancing right around that daily open. And we've got a green H1, but we've got a red M30. And I've got the M30 chart up with the Walmal lines. So you can
Yeah,
see here that in the first half hour, it broke through the previous H1 high. It broke through the Walmal line at 90, gave it a good, opportunity to make about 10 pips. And now it's coming back the other way.
yeah. I mean, and this is an opportunity, to go and potentially make as much as 10 pips. I don't know if it will or not. I think it's going to stall. Coming down right now, we're sitting here about 93 or so. And if it continues coming down, it's probably going to stall at 90, just because that's where that big return bar is from like 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes ago.
Well, here
And
we
then on
are.
top, yeah, we are. Yeah. But see, like right now, it's kind of stalled out.
Yeah.
You see how it jumped out there? I would have gone, I would have gotten in at, my entry would have been at, let's say, I want to say 3.3, 3.4, and I would have gotten out as soon as that stalled down at 90.4. Fine. After paying commission, paying spread and everything else, we picked up, 2 pips. 2 pips is better than no pips.
Right.
And you just do that all day long. You just keep on doing it. And that's again me playing my limits, because I look at this and I say, it's going to come down here, and just looking to the left, it had problems getting through it to the top side, and it had multiple problems getting through it to the bottom side. Well, obviously that 90 line means something.
Right.
Somebody else set a limit there, and they said, you're not going to do anything here. For whatever reason. Now, eventually it'll be cracked, and it'll run through it. But the thing is, do you want to be on the bleeding edge of that sword, as they say? I personally goes, hey, it gets down here, I'll take my money and go home and be happy. I'm not looking, and I guess, this whole idea of talking limits, Hero, people who are not setting limits on what they can and cannot do, or what their account size says they can and cannot do, or what their emotions say they can and cannot do. I think a lot of it comes down to, we have this mentality in this world that we want to get rich quick. And Forex is not a get rich quick scheme. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get rich off of it, and I'm not saying that there are people who did get rich off of it quickly. But what I'm saying is, in general, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a type of thing where, like any other profession, you got to put in the time, put in the seat time, learn the skill, learn how to go and do it, and just do it methodically, step by step by step. It's sort of like you can't, it'd be like, a bricklayer going and laying one brick down and the whole building is built. It doesn't happen that way. The bricklayer lays down one brick at a time.
Exactly. But it's funny you talk about, putting in the time, and it's funny because I had modified the exit playbook indicator to let me know how long I was in the trade. And it's funny because for us, we're in a trade a minute, 30 seconds, if we're in a trade 2 or 3 minutes, it's like, hey, something's wrong here.
Right. And again, that just comes down to the way we're trading.
Right.
Now,
but what
that's a limit, right?
but my point is, if you go, like, if I put in a 1 minute chart, sometimes, yeah, you can get your 10 pips in 2 minutes. Sometimes that's possible. But if you look at it, a lot of times it might take you 5, 10, or more minutes to get those 10 pips. And for us, that's an eternity being in a
Right.
trade. It just depends on your time horizon.
Exactly. Now, by the way, I went long at the 2000, just so I saw an opportunity, and we'll see what happens with that trade. Up right now, like a pip, but we'll see. It may not make it. I don't know, but we'll find out. And the thing is, you just have to be calm when you do it. Just take the trade. See what you're going to see. Take your money when you can, take your losses when you have to, and just be happy with it. And, and that's the advantage of putting in those limits, Tiro. It's just because you're able to go and just, there's no reason to get upset. You've got this built into your system, and it just lets you go and do what you're going to do. I'm up 3 pips right now, so, I'm looking to get out real quick. If this doesn't continue up, I'm out. So, and, people will poo-poo me saying, why are you only taking 3 pips? This can go to the moon. Yeah, you're right. It could. It could also go the other way. I'd rather just take my money and be happy.
Exactly. And that's part of, like you said, knowing your limits, because you have to know them to the downside and to the upside.
That's exactly right. I think a lot of us don't know it. We talked about this about a year or so, maybe more than a year ago, but we talked about it a lot. And it was this idea of, know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, you're going to get yourself into trouble because, if you don't know yourself well enough to know how you're going to react in high stress, pressure situations, you're going to get yourself in trouble. By the way, I got 2.5 pips on that trade. And right now I'd be really upset. I'd probably be down, 4 or 5 pips right now if I hadn't taken my pips. And that's what you got to do. Just, for me, with my method, that's what I do. I know what my limit is. I know what makes me happy. I know what goes and makes me not happy. And they just got to go and play the game that way, and that's what this is. It's a game but it's not a game like who cares? No, it's a game like it's a competition. Maybe a better word for it's not a game, but a competition.
Yeah, the funny thing is your biggest competition is yourself.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. Your biggest competition is yourself. Are you going to go and bash yourself over the head when you make mistakes, or are you going to lift yourself up, figure out what you did wrong, and try not to go and do it again? You will, but try not to do it again, or at least try to limit the amount of times that you do it.
And we just bounced off the Daily Open once again here.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see if it goes.
Now, I got a question for you. Since you've been trading, has your limits changed? And what caused them to change if they did?
Yes, they have changed. And the reason why, I'll give you the reason why they've changed first. And that is that as my account size grew and and as I became more comfortable with doing things, I saw that I could go and handle things that previously I was not able to handle. So, for instance, my lot sizes went up. That's a limit, how much you're willing to risk on a trade.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, no, your lot size isn't how much you're willing to risk. That's just how much you're willing to play with per pip.
Right. Right. Well, I look at that as part of my risk as well, because the thing is, I don't change the amount of pips that I'm willing to go against me. So that's why it's the inverse of it. So that's why I say it that way. But you're right. It's not. You are technically correct, absolutely technically correct. Whereas I'm looking at it from the way I look at things, because I look at, okay, I'm risking 4 pips on this trade, 4 lots on this trade. I'm risking 1 lot on this trade, and that's how I look at it, because the number of pips I'm willing to go and sustain doesn't change really. Now I probably shouldn't do that, and I would advise not to do that. I got into the habit of doing it that way, and it probably is not a good idea to do it that way. And the reason why is because if you move from market to market, or not market to market, but instrument to instrument, that's going to get you into trouble.
Right.
Because you're going to get confused. But because basically, there are only 2 things I trade, and that is this and oil. And when I trade oil, I'm trading it for long term. I'm not trading it short term. So it doesn't really matter. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah. So that's the fastest 15 minutes in trading once again there, boys and girls and non-binaries. So I hope you glean something from that, because when you sit down at your trading terminal, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and train the banks. This is the TheRumpledOne, over and out.